Friends and enemies, welcome back to the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. This is episode number 151, like the Bacardi, 75.5 proof. This one is probably, I don't know. It's going to be just as strong this episode, I think, as that Bacardi. My name is Joey. Here is always my co-host, Len. Brother, what is going on over there in your neck of the woods?
Not much to say, man. It's just a family day.
Let's look around there. Just check and make sure everything's in the same place. Left it or what?
Yeah. My wife was in cleaning mode today. So, yeah.
Oh.
So it's just, I don't know. It's a ho-hum day. How about you, Joey?
Oh, man, things are good. Busy day at work. Good lift today. I got a screw-in steak and a lead for my dog to go in the backyard. Moose met another dog who's like kitty corner to our backyard. Basil, super nice dog, heterochromatic dog.
What the heck problem is now heterochromatic dog?
Two different colored eyes. And so yeah, it's not. It's like a Aussie Shepherd mix, I think. Great looking dog, very well behaved, well mannered. The funniest thing is that now that he knows that dog is over there like once every week or so, maybe on weekends he sees him more often than not. Every time he goes outside, he hops my little fence and goes over to the neighbor's house and waits to try and go inside. So can't have that. So I got a lead for him until we can get a fence up in the spring. I don't really want to do it right now, but in the spring I'll put something up so I don't have to tie him. But yeah, everything's good, man. It's a good day to be a Bitcoiner as always. And you and me have been busy the last week or so. You're going to be busy this week. I'm going to be busy this week. We got tons going on. Maybe we'll start with the sponsors though, as always. Two great companies. EasyDNS, the best place for you to host your website. The friendly neighborhood registrar, like Mark always says. Domain hosting made easy. We got our domain, CanadianBitcoiners.com, which I still haven't renewed, which I have to do.
So we're gonna lose that. So somebody's gonna squid. No,
didn't do it. Yeah, Mark, if you hear this, just like put it on my account or whatever. Same credit card. So we got that going on. Also at EasyDNS, whatever you need as far as virtual private server needs, they got it. So if you want to run a Nostr relay, Bitcoin node, BTC Pay server, nodeless implementation, all manner of things. Be creative, man. And you know, if, on top of that, if you have like an old website with shitty email service provision and you want to move it over to EasyDNS, Mark will help you with that too. He's got GPG and GPG and PGP privacy options for you. Can't beat it. All there for a reasonable price. And Mark is always in the chat here on Monday nights and sometimes on other nights too. Easy to get a hold of them. They'll help you with whatever you need. They've done a great job with our website. Now that we're actually using it, posting some stuff, writing some stuff. Len posts the summaries there for the week coming up every Sunday. Go visit it. See if you like it. And if you want to start something like that, or maybe just put up a website where you talk about like your family brownie recipe or something, EasyDNS will help you. So go over. CBP Media is the code. Don't forget to use that and get 50% off your first buy with them. Who's the other sponsor?
No, before we even go there, I just want to say one thing, and I want to give a big thank you to Mark because he did something for our website about how Sabrina set up a gold card, made a page specifically for her.
Yeah.
And, so I just want to thank, and we didn't ask him to do it; he did this on his own volition. So thank you very much. That's the kind of service you get with EasyDNS. But then I have to plug the second one because Bull Bitcoin. This is the greatest place in Canada that you could buy a Bitcoin. I can't speak of the rest of the world because I haven't traveled the rest of the world and visited and checked the other exchanges out there. But Bull Bitcoin, non-custodial. This is key. And just in fact, in the chat, people are talking about, look what's going on with Coinbase in terms of potentially being 6102. You're not going to have this problem with Bull Bitcoin. You can buy your Bitcoin. It goes directly to the address you provide. They don't hold it, which is fantastic. But it's not only just on-chain, you could also get on Lightning as well. So if the fees are high, which they are not right now, we're almost back to single-digit sats per VByte. We're very, very close. But still, you have the option if you want to use on-chain over there. But there's a lot of good things that you could do over there. And again, we'll be talking about this later on. Again, a stupid Coinbase story. You could pay with your Bitcoin and pay your bills with that. So, and you could use an unhosted wallet. Your own wallet you could use to pay Bitcoin. To pay your bills with Bitcoin. Can't do this with other shitty exchanges. Think about this. Bull Bitcoin provides you that. You can also buy gift cards and spend this in the real world. So many different options Bull Bitcoin provides you. But the best thing they have, in my opinion, laundry list of great things they have, is the kyc-free. Go to Canada Post. Unfortunately, it was closed today. At least I think it was closed today. Whatever it was. So, yeah. So either way, wait till tomorrow. Give them your Canadian dollars. They'll load up your Bull Bitcoin account. With that, you could buy kyc-free Bitcoin. That is huge, and it's going to be huge moving forward. And we'll talk about why it's huge in today's show.
Yeah, huge. So Great companies. Definitely check them both out. EasyDNS and Bull. Busy week last week, Glenn. We had 3 shows. The Monday rip, as always. Then the always gracious, always well-informed, and steady fan favorite, the CBP faithful. SB came on, talked about coin, MSTR, and some of the stuff about the ETF and the effects on Bitcoin equities, miners, and whatnot. That was after coin reported earnings and blew out expectations. He's been really good to the show over the years, Len, and I'm always impressed with the stuff he brings to the table because he's doing it professionally, don't forget. But him and I, although we do talk every day, I don't give him the questions in advance. And sometimes I don't think about the questions until we're speaking and you come up with some kind of angle or topic you want to discuss, a thread you want to pull on a bit. He's always got information and he's accountable as far as the answers because he looks at the comments and tells me when people get in there. So I think Boomer told him on Twitter that he thought we were bearish. I don't know what we were bearish on. I thought it was all bull content, but all the same.
I thought it was straight talk. I don't think you guys were even bearish or bullish. You guys were just laying out the facts.
No, we got to ask Boomer. But I thought it was good. So big thanks to him. And then Saturday morning, I talked to Chris Irons with a very special guest appearance. I want to say guest appearance, but it really wasn't a cameo. Larry was there for basically the whole show. Larry Lepard. Larry has never been on the show before, but I had his number from the conference last year. I have a bunch of phone numbers of great Bitcoiners, thankfully, because we were kind of setting up some of these panels and talking about some of the ins and outs of the day. And so I thought, well, I was walking Moose on Saturday morning, man, you know who I bet is awake and would be great to surprise Chris with would be Larry. And he was very gracious, agreed to do it, did it in his workout clothes, as you may have heard if you listened to the show. And if you haven't seen Chris's reaction on video, you got to see it. He was super pumped, and I was really happy about that episode. I think it was really good.
Was he doing it from his bedroom? In his bed, because the angle of that camera,
he was like lying. If you look at the way he's drinking his coffee, I think the bed was like maybe angled up and he's like leaning against. That's
it
great.
Looks like it's great. A camera, you know what I mean? As he's lying down in bed and just looking up. That's the way it looked like to me.
He told me it was his laptop. So I think he was probably sitting like I am now, except maybe with his feet out in front of him, right?
It was a very interesting, setup that he had over there.
So a lot of good content that episode. We talked about his sort of old way of thinking, his new way of thinking, the Bitcoin leap, a little bit about Schiff and, where Bitcoin sits as far as his relationship to gold. I thought it was really good. I hope you guys enjoy it. And again, like big thanks to Chris and Larry. I'm a morning guy and I don't mind doing that on a weekend if it makes it easy for the guests. And it was a little bit of sprinkled in content and that chat was packed. There was like 50 people there, 60 people there for a couple of minutes, a couple different times. So I was really happy to see that. I'm glad you guys are morning people too. Now I wanted Muslim Bitcoiners in the chat telling me to give my thoughts on the 2 gold bugs I had on. Those guys are not gold bugs. They are gold investors. I think, you can't really call them gold bugs anymore. Chris is very chill, QTR. And I think he thinks about things a lot of the same ways that we do, right? He's a skeptic, self-described. And I think we are too. A lot of stuff we talk about on the show is just us being skeptical or looking through a skeptical lens at some monetary policies and political policies and things like that. I think that's a fair position to have. And if that makes him a boomer, then, I'm a boomer too. We're all boomers in here together. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I love the questions and comments that were coming in during the chat. I want to apologize to the chat because it was busy in the live chat and I was kind of juggling 2 guests. So it was a little harder for me to get to the chat during the show, but I really enjoyed that. And then Len, this week, you have Gabe from Bitcoin Advisors on Wednesday, right? Which is going to be really good. Gabe is a younger guy. I think he's still in his 20s, if I remember correctly. I met him at Innocente with you in September. He's doing a lot of good stuff. He's got like some not YouTube, but like Twitter videos up now. He's got a little bit of a following there. I'm looking forward to seeing what he gets up to. I think he's going to be a quality Bitcoiner and a quality episode. And then I don't want to spoil it, but I believe that same day,
it's also a double header. I'm doing the Your Life, Your Terms. I don't know if it's going to be with Tom and or Nick. Love to have them both, but I don't know. It's not my call. But yeah, I'll be talking to them or one of them about whatever they want to talk about, most likely Bitcoin. And shortly after that, we wrap things up. We'll be playing some NHL 94. Yeah, and I'm going to enjoy that. So it's going to be a triple header.
Stream it. Just set your phone up in the corner. Just stream it. To the show account.
So we might have a 2v2 over there. Who knows? Because they have the boardroom where they could just hook the computer.
I love it. Yeah, get Nigel to play. Get him in there too. Whoever wants that fourth controller. And then Thursday night, by the way, I'm going on a friend of our show, Hervoye Morich's program, TNT, Today's News Talk. I think it's at 7:20. There's a phone number for that show. So if you guys are interested and are, looking to bust my balls in a public forum live on air, you can do it. You can call in. So I'm exposing myself a little bit there. Don't
Why don't we have our
secrets about me.
Call in? We have to have
Len, the day we get
number.
the day we get a live call-in number will be the day that you start doing this show on your own. Okay. So
could you imagine taking random calls from folks out there?
People do it all day long. What do you mean? First time, long time.
That'd be amazing.
Jets should be looking to trade Aaron Rodgers.
But the problem is we have to have somebody working the switchboard, right? So then it'd be a 3-person operation. So if anybody,
can Sabrina do it? Sabrina can do a cold card. She can do the board.
No, she's got her own thing. So if anybody has intentions of doing it, we don't pay very well. I think we don't pay anything. Send us your applications and let us know if you want to partake and be our switchboard operator. You'll get a lot of credit from us. That's basically it.
Boomer in the chat. Maybe Rush can call in from Waterloo.
I think he wouldn't troll us to the same degree he does somebody else. Right. So at the very least, we'll be. Too bad Rush is not around in that forum because he left, right? And he voluntarily left too. And I missed that. Anyway,
he's cleansing.
This is very cryptic for people out there. We'll just leave it at that. We're getting kind of deep into this. I just want to be very quick with the boost, and I'll be quick because we only got one boost, which is very odd. It's from Teets, 500 sats. Love Larry. Now, I just want to say, number one, thank you to Teets for providing the 500 sats. I took a look at the sats we get on a weekly basis. It's been roughly on par to other weeks. It's actually slightly more we got last week. People are listening and streaming per minute, but not sending us any boosts. I suggest turn the streams off, send us a boost.
You get whatever you want read on the air.
Yeah, it's the same thing, and then you get something that we can read here. So that's what I suggest. Turn the stream off for us. Don't send us the sats every minute. Just send us, and even like 100 sats boost. You don't have to send. You can send
literally read anything. A
shittier boost than you would give us in streaming a sats, and then you'll come out ahead, and we'll come out ahead, I think too. But that's just my 2 cents. But thank you to everybody that's streaming us.
You guys are the best, man. I had the warm and fuzzies after the Saturday show because I just couldn't believe there's so many people there to watch that interview. And yeah, the sport's been amazing. Anyway, let's fucking get into it. Where do you want to start today? We got lots to talk about in the Bitcoin world, don't we?
Yeah, well, there's another country that just threw their hat into the Bitcoin mining game, and this time it's Ethiopia. And Ethiopia, they have an abundant amount of hydroelectric energy that they generate. And in fact, 90% of the energy they generate is from hydroelectric. It's very similar to BC. And they're actually in the same situation as BC, as they're in fact the net importer of energy right now. Soon they'll be a net exporter once their project that is the Grand Ethiopian Resistance Dam. This is a mega project that is going to generate about 5 gigawatts worth of electricity. It's quite a bit of electricity here. It's going to be the most electricity actually that's going to be for the continent of Africa. Anyways, Ethiopia, they entered into a partnership with a subsidiary of West Data Group. And with this partnership, they're going to be mining Bitcoin on behalf of the Ethiopian government. And what is funny for all this thing is because if you look at this report and the news when it came out, the report came out initially saying that the Ethiopian Investment Holdings, EIH, this is the strategic investment arm of the Ethiopian government. That's the one that reported it. But shortly afterwards, the announcement, they erased in their announcement who was their partner, the West Data Group, and also the number that was being thrown around, 250 million related to this partnership. For some reason, they decided to scrub this information out, but too late, it was already out in the wild. This is, in fact, the second mining project related to this new dam. We talked about a story not too long ago, I think about roughly a month ago on this show, about a company from Russia named BitCluster, and they were assisting with setting up a 120 megawatt Bitcoin mining operation in Ethiopia with respect to this dam. I'm not sure if this partnership that with the West Data Group is in conjunction with BitCluster or has any connection with it. I do not know. I tried looking to see anything. I could not find anything, but still you have at least these two somewhat related stories. I don't know if it's one story or two, but either way, you have yet another sovereign nation out there that is finding a way to generate wealth, and they're using this excess electricity once they set up this dam. And it's something, this wealth that they're generating is not tied to the US dollar. It's de-dollarization that is happening within Ethiopia. And, I like this story, but the best thing I like about the story, I think, Joey, the national currency of Ethiopia is the birr. It's like, this was fucking meant to be. This is a fucking meme that has come to life. I love it. But you know what? The hash rate goes up. And we've been talking about this for a long time. Who the fuck's been plugging it in? Well, we have some. I'm talking about the ASICs. We have now confirmation, at least Ethiopia is one that is going to be doing this moving forward. I love it.
Is it more likely, in your view, that a lot of these countries, not to speak ill of Ethiopia, but, we may as well call a spade here. The countries that are on the gold machine gun index, are they the most likely to be mining Bitcoin behind the scenes, you think?
I guess the regulations that are prevalent within those jurisdictions are easily to get around and skirt those systems. So yes, yeah. So yeah, I would say absolutely. You could do whatever you want. Palms could be greased and things could move ahead, regardless of what laws, regulations, policies are in place. Absolutely.
I think so too. And I can't imagine that too many of these countries with currencies that like no one uses unless they're local economies, right? Like everyone over there probably isn't, it's probably a dollar economy, right? When people want it to be. So my guess is that you're going to see more and more of this from those countries. I actually like the idea of the gold machine gun index countries doing this because they have the most to gain from getting off the US dollar. And man, what a story it would be if these countries who are on the, Wikipedia list of highest corruption by capita or per capita or whatever, highest level of corruption, any government, if they were to get off the IMF teat and central banks, international central banks teat and onto Bitcoin and start to see reduction in corruption, what a story that would be. Like that's really where you have successes. Someone in the chat, I think it was Muslim Bitcoiner as well, saying Honduras about a couple of hours ago, I just looked, banned all crypto transactions. You're going to see more countries go that direction too. I know it is news, right? And so the funny thing I think is you're going to be able to draw a pretty clear line between countries who went one way and countries who went the other. And how long is the time horizon, right? If you asked me 3 years ago how long it would take to see a difference, I would have said 10 or 15 years. But in El Salvador, mind you, there was some other factors. I admit that. I'll submit to you that there's other things going on there, not just the Bitcoin adoption. It only took about 2 years, 3 years, right, for their economy to start showing signs of growth and for, I think, their credit rating to increase or improve, whatever the terminology is, and things like this. So I look forward to seeing the clear delineation between countries who saw the light and countries who maybe didn't. And now we know where Ethiopia sits. So let's, I don't know, wait and see. What else can you say about that?
You were saying that you were thinking Ethiopia probably uses the US dollar as the currency of choice within the country. Come on, there's no fucking way they're not using the birr en masse. If I had a choice between US dollars, Benjamin Franklin's, and whatever's on the fucking birr, probably that meme of Jerome Powell.
Who is it on the birr? Let's see. Ethiopian birr.
If it's not birr, if it's not Powell.
You know how much one Ethiopian birr is in Canadian dollars?
I have no clue. If I had to guess, I'm going to guess maybe 150 to $1.
It's one Ethiopian birr to 2 Canadian cents.
So it's 50 to 1, right?
Yeah.
So I was a third off. Now you were talking about the breaking news of Honduras banning Bitcoin within, I guess they call it crypto within their borders. I just took a look.
Shout out to Muslim Bitcoiner for that. I didn't know that.
I just took a look right now. I went on Yahoo Finance to look at this, and very preliminary information here. They're stating that it's with the banking institutions, so they're prohibiting institutions under supervision with dealing with digital assets. So in terms of their banks, they don't want them to deal with it whatsoever. They say that there's a crypto-friendly initiative within this article that's called Bitcoin Valley. I've never heard of it, but I get that neck of the woods in Central America, there seems to be lots of activity with that.
Why don't we send Julian there to make a documentary?
Why not, Joey?
Julian, get over there, buddy. What are you thinking about a documentary we have to be made here, buddy?
I was thinking about you hopping in a war wagon and going south. And sure. From what I understand, the border is like when you get to the U.S.-Mexican border, it's going to be easy to cross. You just keep going south, and away you go.
Especially if you're in a caravan. Hey, so look, check out this this thing, the Ethiopian birr. My only question is, why do they have a picture of Niagara Falls on there?
Is that something like Victoria Falls or something?
I don't know. That's the Ethiopian birr. Interesting. A case study.
I have to get
CBP.
it. I mean,
I don't know
have
where
to
you're gonna
get
get
people.
one. What are you gonna do? Go to TD and grab one? I don't think they keep them in the back.
No,
You know?
you go on everywhere else. People were purchasing Zimbabwe dollars online. I'm sure you could pick up one of these burrs somewhere out there. In fact, we should start selling them on our website.
I think
we
you're
can
right.
make a killing. Anyways,
Yeah.
let's move on, because the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, these decels, they issued a report this last week.
Vincent.
So it's about highlighting that there's an increased usage of Bitcoin and shitcoins for human trafficking and sexual exploitation.
Never
Now, keep
ends.
in mind, this report came out this week. This report is based off data between January 2020 and December 2021. Now, put yourself in what happened between January 20 and December 2021. They're cherry picking data here, because if you look at the price of Bitcoin during this time, what took place with the economy, mainly, there's closures and just about everywhere. A lot more people were looking at Bitcoin and understanding that it could be used as a medium of exchange. So I'm not trying to defend the usage of it in this particular sense, but the usage increased everywhere with respect to Bitcoin, for buying goods, for buying shit, for purchasing even this, unfortunately, just because the adoption of Bitcoin went up. Because you remember the time frame, put into context, January 2020 to December 2021, a lot happened. So I'd love to see the same type of report outline how many people bought cold cards with Bitcoin during the same period of time. And I'd love to see the overlay. And if there's an exact trend between the two. Think about that. I would imagine that there's so much FUD around this, and it's uneducated opinion. And I'm thinking you might as well get Danielle DiMartino Booth come on and give out her thoughts about Bitcoin as well, because this is all fucking bullshit, if you ask me.
That's funny. What can you say? Turns out like human traffickers don't want to make an appointment to go talk to somebody at the bank with a mask on either, right? So that's the whole of the story. You really, if you start talking about, like, not to make light of this, okay, but this is obviously terrible. I will say though that, Elizabeth Warren and others like her, not to bring her into the story here, but there's been an attempt obviously to paint Bitcoin as this illicit currency, right? Everyone uses this for illicit activity. It's the main use. It's the key use. It's the thing that keeps it afloat. We know this isn't true. We've seen this over the years, that the data is cherry picked, as you said. But I think the more important thing is that you're starting to see certain publications. I think it was the Wall Street Journal and the Treasury Department basically rebuke Warren in this case, with her comments about BTC being used for money laundering and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised to start seeing other people take shots at this. Now, the problem with debunking every single stupid article is Brandolini's law, right? You got to spend 10 times as much time, covering covering all the bullshit stories and telling people why they're wrong than you do actually making up the bullshit story and getting it to publishers. So I don't expect that we're going to take care of all these things all at once and spend time on this stuff. But Len, I think that more and more, the same machine that sort of churns and helps Wall Street look good for a lot of people is going to start helping Bitcoin look good now that we're part of this sort of ETF in group. And I would expect most of these stories to fade away. The thing I think is going to come hard and fast, though, and we're probably going to talk about this, and I think it's on the list actually, it's not going to be the illicit use, although it may be a wedge into the broader thing and the easier target. It's going to be the industrial mining setups in the US and European Union countries, and maybe Canada as well. I don't know if we even have any up here anymore. Hut 8 might still operate up here, but not many other places, or not many other miners do. So I think that overall, what can you say about this story besides everyone kind of knows, right? There's a book, I think, called Lying with Data, if I remember correctly, that I think everyone should at least browse or see if your library's got it or get it on Kindle or something. It's kind of a fun read. There's some other ones too. I have one out in the other room there. Maybe I'll bring it in next week if I remember. But you'd be surprised how many people don't have the literacy to pin down these lies, right? They don't have the financial literacy, or like the numeracy, I guess would be the word. Speaking of literacy, numeracy would be the word, to really look at data and say, yeah, there's actually other factors at play here. It's not just that human trafficking, kingpins and dons suddenly all wanted to sweep their ledgers and start using their money to buy people from abroad. It's just not how it works. And I'm glad you pointed that out. I hope other people realize that too.
I think that it's because people are very busy with their lives between work, family, play. how much time could they put into debunking and figuring out the data that's being presented to them? It's very difficult to do so. And if you're just basically skimming through an article quickly, you're not going through the nitty gritty. You're basically taking it, and it could go in one ear and out the other, or some of it may stick, but you're not analyzing that information. And this is just the reality. And the way the fiat system is set up, it's so complex. It's impossible to grasp everything. And I know this isn't truly a fiat story, but there's still a connection to it. Does anybody really understand fiat, like the whole system?
No,
I certainly don't, and I'm sure a lot of people don't. And even the people that are the people pulling the triggers, they might have a good grasp of it, but still they don't have a total grasp. I'm going to argue that they don't have a total grasp of it, and I'm going to use the interest rates as an example of it. The fact that they were so late to raising them, given the fact that all the data presented that everything, the inflation was going to go up, and they reacted late, goes to show me that they don't know everything with this. So if those people don't know everything, it's hard to, I'm not saying you're finding fault, but it's hard to say that other people should have the ability to read between the lines and figure out that a lot of this is bullshit. This is too bad, especially when it comes from, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish. I was
going to say, especially when it comes from reputable sources, but
yeah. The problem I have too, as far as like reading stuff, and actually Narwhal's mentioning in the chat, that's what reminded me. We don't just do this, and people don't just do this in fiat land. Bitcoiners do this too. Like someone tweeted out a Fidelity thing about proof of work today, sometime this morning. And I was like, I'm sure that I've seen this before, but everyone's tweeting it out like, oh, new money is entering the arena. These guys are all going to figure this out, blah, blah, blah. Like Fidelity printed that article like 5 months ago. It's not new. And Bitcoiners just grab it, latch on. Like you didn't even bother to open the fucking link, dude. Just don't take shots at and like I'm not saying we do this, although I'm sure we do without even knowing it, but don't take shots at people for not reading stuff, and then yourself like get on this like viral please like my tweet train at 8:30 a.m. because Fidelity put out something 5 months ago that you didn't read then and didn't read now either. Like you're just giving yourself up. We got to do better than that, because the crosshairs are on us, man, in a major way, which we'll find out in a few of the other stories we're covering tonight.
Coinbase Commerce.
Yeah.
This Coinbase Commerce, to be perfectly honest, I never heard of it until this past week.
We have talked about it on the show before.
We have, but you know what?
Way back, when we were in our infancy, I think.
Wow, this thing never stuck with me.
Yeah.
But anyways, my fault.
We used to talk about a lot more stuff that was on the fringes of like shit that people cared about, and then we just stuck to stuff that we really liked, and then we think people should know. And this one is like this one is popping up now under that second category, unfortunately.
Well, the reality is there's two ways you could go. Now I'm going to go into the weeds. To present a product like we do, you could either try to present something which appeals to a lot of people, or you could do something that appeals to you. I'm talking about the people producing it, like Joey and myself. I think we're doing the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and for better or for worse, I mean, people like it or not, it appeases us, at least for now. Coinbase Commerce, it's from their website, is the most seamless way to start accepting crypto payments. This is straight from them. And they say it's an easy way to accept payments from around the world. Instant settlements, low fees, and broad asset supports. And they say it's all built on their on-chain payment protocol. And this is an interesting development, and because coming from them, they have announced that they are no longer going to be accepting payments from self-custody wallets or third-party exchanges. So if you have a cold card, for instance, unfortunately, out of luck, you can't use your Sparrow or Electrum to broadcast it because that's a self-custody wallet. So if one wants to make a purchase, you got to use something that's been assigned to you, a KYC, something like that, I guess, or something that is affiliated with Coinbase, at least Coinbase Commerce. But nonetheless, it's funny they're doing this because, they've even Lightning. There's something that you can't use. They should be able to use this. This is a quick way to do anything with commerce, especially with Bitcoin, but they choose not to use it. But anyways, Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong was saying that this is the fastest checkout today in commerce. And he says that he wants to use ERC20 on layer 2, Base, Polygon, and shit like that. He says that this includes Ethereum, USDC, wrapped Bitcoin, and thousands of ERC20 tokens. This is straight from him from a tweet this week. So as you can see, these are the type of tokens, digital assets, shitcoins, that he wants to push to use on this platform. And a lot of this, I guess would be KYC'd. So I guess the question I have is, number one, who the fuck pays for anything with shitcoins compared to Bitcoin? I guess if you're going to compare, very few people use Bitcoin comparatively than, say, the US dollar for paying for shit. And I would say for the whole swat of shitcoins, they probably far less for spending on it to buy shit than Bitcoin. So why the fuck are they pandering to this? Number one. Number two, why are they doing this? It seems like they want to capture so much more information and restrict the ability to transact with your own self-hosted wallet. So KYC-free Bitcoin is shut out. So seeing this, it's another nail in the coffin for these guys. And so much is wrong with them. I don't know. I can't see anything that's good about this. And we'll be talking about Zapright in a little bit. That's a competitor with news that came up from them this week. It goes to show you that that is a Bitcoin-related company that's for Bitcoiners, and Coinbase and Coinbase Commerce is just a fiat company. They're there just to get as much information as possible and regulatory captured, all that bullshit. All this stuff I fucking hate. And on top of that, Coinbase is used as a custodian by some of these ETFs. It's an enormous amount of Bitcoin that is being captured in by Coinbase. Do you like this? I certainly don't, but that's just my opinion.
You're just absolutely nuking my Coinbase bags. So
I hope it goes to the roof for you. Like, I hope it goes. But in reality, fuck Coinbase.
Couple things of note here. Do you know why they're apparently doing this? I mean, this is the reason they're giving. I'll tell you the reason they're giving, and then I'll tell you the reason I think they're actually doing it.
I guess it's to appease regulators. There must be some sort of overarching, somebody pulling the strings saying you got to.
It's worse.
Go ahead. I'm curious.
They're having trouble with an EVM stack related to payments, Ethereum virtual machine stack related to Bitcoin payments.
But how does an EVM?
Your guess is as good as mine. I had to double check it because I could have swore I saw it earlier, and that is exactly what they're saying. And I even did my usual AI checkup here, and it's saying the same thing. So whatever that means, I have no fucking idea. I don't know what an Ethereum virtual machine has to do with Bitcoin payments. It sounds like there's just a smart contract and some other stuff that's involved in getting this to work. I don't know exactly how it goes, but that's fine. Now, I think the real reason, Len, honestly, is because they want to trap people in that ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And I mean, David Bailey, who's a good friend of yours, I think he was at your Thanksgiving dinner earlier this year or last year. He put out a tweet the other day that was actually yesterday or Saturday, I forgot, about the government 6102ing Bitcoin. And he does make the case that, you know, at some point it'll be in their best interest to grab this stuff and give it back to you for some pegged value or something like that. Same way they did with gold, right? This makes it a lot easier if the stuff that's bought on Coinbase is the only stuff you can use on Coinbase Commerce, and Coinbase Commerce proliferates, then that gets to be a much simpler exercise than if you had to, you know, if you had to do it some other way, right? If you had to use chilling effects or something like that. Like they want clearly to have everything in a tied up ecosystem. And as you mentioned, the ETFs, I don't know the exact number now. I think it's 8 or 9 of the ETFs are custodied by Coinbase Custody. And also MicroStrategy is using Coinbase Custody too.
A portion of their stack.
That's still not good. Not good. And I got a real beef with this. This is why I said to SB last week that I think this MicroStrategy pivot to a Bitcoin development company, it's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Wasn't he trolling? I think that was a troll, to be honest.
Explain to me how a guy like Saylor, who talks about Lightning proliferating, who talks about payments, talks about store value, talks about decentralization, censorship resistance, open source money, uses Coinbase to custody his coins. Does he not get it, or is he lying? Which one do you think is true? Because one of them is. So if you know this kind of stuff altogether doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But if I think about it through the lens that Bailey put out there yesterday, even though I think he's wrong about some of the stuff he wrote, and I tweeted that to him, I just think that I'm looking at this and saying, like, you know, it sure does look like this is going to be an easy capture at some point if the government really wants to do it. ETFs, all the Coinbase coins, all going to be in the same place. Let's grab this. It's a national security issue. It's an inflation issue. It's a whatever issue. And thanks for playing. Your Bitcoin's not yours anymore. Good luck.
It never was.
Yeah.
It was just an IOU, and they're not going to honor.
Yeah,
it.
And boomers in the chat saying don't give Bailey that much credit. I know people have been saying that for years, but I thought Bailey's case was pretty convincing, save for some of the market cap numbers. And I ran it by obviously SB, and he had some disagreement as well with some of the trillions here, trillions there. Like pretty soon you're talking about real money when you're throwing trillions around like that. And I think Bailey's wrong about a couple of those numbers, but overall, it's an interesting picture, a spicy take, which is all people want to do for engagement these days. And I engage with it, so it worked for me. But yeah, I think, there's been a lot of people calling for this being a danger, and it certainly is a danger. How could it not be a danger? People who say, like, and I think Larry said this either on Saturday or on another show I heard him on, I forget now, like, you may not think they're going to take gold or Bitcoin. You may not think they're going to seize equities. You may not think there's going to be a bail-in. You may not think there's going to be, capital controls, outflow controls, or that your real estate will be used to, house newcomers or whatever edge case, right? You may not think it's going to happen, but you cannot say that it is a 0% chance, a 0% likelihood. There's just no way you can say that. No sane person would say that these days. Why take a chance with custody, man? Like, that's why one of the reasons we endorse Bull and we partnered with them for the show is because it's fucking, non-custodial. There's no chance that you're going to get rugged by the Bull Bitcoin team, right? It's just not going to happen. And it's important. Like, self-custody is important. There's going to come a time when you will be villainized, right? A lot of people in my mentions saying that, get ready to be blamed for inflation. I could picture that coming. Couldn't you?
Anything is possible, as you mentioned.
Anything is possible.
There is a non-zero chance for everything you mentioned.
Yeah. So why risk it? I can't imagine why you would risk it.
I 100% agree with you. And we've been talking about this for quite some time. And the ability to store your Bitcoin and self-host it is one of the fundamentals that make Bitcoin so great.
Yeah.
And the fact that they could rug this from you or from people that are invest in this, it's done in the past. Gold at one time, they used to have a piece of paper where it was convertible. You got to go to the bank and convert that piece of paper to.
It was on the currency for a time, was it not?
Up until the 30s, I believe it was.
Okay,
and not just the United States. Also in England, the same thing happened until World War I took place. So the ability to do that was there. And then after that, then countries could do it for next 40 years or so until they decided to fuck that as well. And then it's just, so yeah, this shit has happened, right? If they could do this,
that's the best part. Like, people are like, it'll never like the equities guys. Okay. To quote our buddy Ragnar, the macro normies who are like, no, your equities are safe. Like Fred Krueger, who will say your equities are safe with a straight face. I want to have him on the show. I might reach out to him and say, like, you got to help me understand this. Like, you're saying that there's basically a 0% chance that any of this stuff happens when all of it has already happened. It's already happened. The U.S. seized foreign reserves. You don't think they'll take your fucking Bitcoin account? You don't think they'll take your fucking ETF coin? You don't think they'll seize your fucking equities? Of course they'll fucking seize them. Of course they will. Yeah. If something gets out of hand, right? Like, it's not that hard to imagine this. These guys went to war over less, okay? Like, they will take your equities, no problem. They won't even blink. It won't even be on the news. Okay.
It is 100% possible that this could happen, but it's not to say it's 100% it will happen.
Yeah.
So that's what I just want to stress. I don't want people to go, think that, this is imminent danger. No, it is a danger. It can happen if or when it's anybody's guess. But by playing these games, you got to understand there is an inherent risk by doing so.
There's a risk. And also, like, I think the Bitcoiners, and again, like, not to single out Kruger, but he talks a lot about how Bitcoin's going to 100,000, 500,000, a million, blah, blah, blah. You can, in my opinion, okay, you can't make that case that Bitcoin's going to a million and ignore the Armageddon in the traditional system, the Armageddon for governments, the Armageddon for debt spending, the Armageddon for treasury reserves and bonds and retirements and entitled. Like, you can't say that it's going to a million, ignore the Armageddon all the way to a million, and then also say, well, but they'll never seize it. There's rule of law. No, man. No. If it goes to a million, you're going to see a lot of things change in what you can and can't do, what becomes acceptable. The Overton window for like peering into your finances and nudging you certain ways, I would guess nudging will become at some point too friendly a term. Honestly, if we see $1 million Bitcoin, it's going to blow your mind, because there's just not a world where Bitcoin gets to 1 million and there's not chaos. And to control chaos, you have to use, the stick. The carrot doesn't work anymore at $1 million Bitcoin. The stick is what you need, and the stick is what you're going to get. So I would, again, I really do caution people about this. You want to hold your own coins. You do not want to leave your Bitcoin on exchanges, in shitty wallets, in, multi-signature services, whatever.
No, multi-sig is okay if it's done
services. Yeah. Don't go to these places who are like, we'll hold one, we'll give another one to a third party and you can hold one. No, find a better way. And this is what you're going to start seeing, man. I think it's coming over and over and over again. Yeah. P-Man Van asked Trump about rule of law. I don't know the ins and outs of that Trump case, but man, does that sound fishy. And I think more and more you're going to start seeing this kind of this disintegration of a once stalwart set of institutions in the United States. Here, you could argue it's already started. I don't know. It depends on how you really feel about some of these things. But, we talked on Access of Easy, for example, about digital IDs, a story that crept up again today.
Oh, I'm not going to touch that with.
Yeah. And so that's tough, right? And so I think that you have to be careful with your assets, and Bitcoin is one of the assets that allows you to really be careful and really be secure in your holdings. So why not take advantage of it? That's part of the equation, right? So definitely should be doing that.
You mentioned something, and I want you to extrapolate a little bit more on it. You were talking about MSTR holding a great deal of their Bitcoin reserves with Coinbase.
Yeah.
Explain what's the issue with that. And I think,
well, Coinbase puts out, Coinbase promotes and supports and encourages people to buy some of the least reliable, most fiat, most corporate bullshit tokens on the planet. They've done it over and over and over again.
And I would securities guess, too. Yeah, stuff that were deemed to be secure. Or sorry,
I would guess 80. I would guess 80% of those tokens have gone down 80% or more, whatever that number is. I don't know, but I bet you it's around there.
Maybe I didn't frame it right. What should MicroStrategy do? What should be the alternative?
They should come up with their own custody. That's what they should do.
So the problem with
go ahead.
The problem with that is because they are a publicly traded company, and because of that, to provide some assurance to their shareholders, at least the appearance that they're not holding it within house, somebody could then steal that and run away if they just get access to the keys. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how they have it set up. 3 of 5 or whatever in terms of multi.
Find a way. Find a way. Use another company that's not Coinbase. Then use Unchained. Use whoever.
Okay. But so it's not the fact that they're using an external service.
It's Coinbase specifically. The external service is whatever, it's somewhere down the list of things that I don't like, but I agree with you. I'm on a board myself. I know that there's a lot of rules and regs, and you have to contend with problems, both perceived and real, when it comes to publicly traded companies, if you're on a board of one. So I get that. But the problem is that this guy is now claiming to be running a Bitcoin development company while giving business to maybe the least beneficial in the current sort of modern age Bitcoin company in the world. We didn't even talk about this last week or this week, but I'll try and find the video of the Coinbase, one of the guys from their stablecoin team, basically begging Congress to pull up the ladder and not let anyone else do stables or release IPOs or whatever, trade any of this stuff. They are executing the strategy they should have executed 5 years ago and didn't for whatever reason. And they're trying to do it now. And Saylor, for all the things he's done well, if you're running a Bitcoin development company, then show me that you care about Bitcoin development and get away from the company that refuses to implement Lightning, refuses to implement other layer 2s, refuses to, their CEO refuses to fucking say Bitcoin in his tweets, man, most of the time.
Didn't he have a .eth in his name? Am I wrong?
Probably.
Some other people.
Paul Graywall does. Their lead attorney does.
My bad. That's not
I wouldn't be surprised if Armstrong did too at one point. The fact of the matter is, if you want to say that you're, and it's funny, QTR said this on the weekend. It's Saylor is the head of state for Bitcoin, not Max Kaiser, like he said. Thank God. Saylor is the head of state for the for the Bitcoin nation right at the moment. So if he wants to be this quality showing leadership type, you have to get away from Coinbase. You have to. And to be honest with you, it tells me something, Len, that we didn't know where the coins were custodied until someone pinned down the MicroStrategy wallets, because he probably realizes too that it looks bad on him and on his company to be using Coinbase when they're clearly not operating in the best interest of Bitcoin as much as they should be, especially because even the most ardent shitcoiner will tell you that if Bitcoin fails, whatever other garbage they're trading, NFT they have, it's all going to zero if Bitcoin fails. You need Bitcoin to succeed. Put your chips in that basket first. And then if you want to dabble in bullshit once Bitcoin has reached exit velocity, go ahead, do whatever you want. But for now, clearly there's a misalignment between MSTR's new mission and Coinbase's mission. And I expect to hear him say something about this. We shouldn't let him skate. Slay your heroes. Someone should be taking him to task on this.
They're not a Bitcoin development company.
They are. MSTR is.
I don't care what they say. They're not.
That's what I'm saying. So why? Okay, so why is he saying that? Is he lying, or does he not understand? That was the original question, right?
I honestly think that was a fucking troll.
I don't fucking think that. That was an earnings call. You
can't
troll. Yeah, you can't troll on an earnings call. It's probably fucking illegal.
I have no clue what the rules and regulations surrounding that. But come on, like nobody in their right mind is going to say that MicroStrategy.
TGem in the chat, friend of the show, TGem. MSTR has the money. I'll put this up for people on YouTube so you don't have to scroll back. MSTR is the money and lawyers. They should be spearheading, figuring out how a public company can do self-custody in a safe and auditable way. They're taking the easy way out in this bullshit. Fucking right it is, man. Of course it is. Lead the way. It's not like you didn't lead the way on the fucking strategy in the first place. You can't lead the way on this too?
There's one commonality with everything here. It's we are dealing with fiat rules. That's what it is. If it was outside being publicly traded, they could do whatever the fuck they want because they don't have to deal with it's a
treasury asset. Like if it's a treasury asset, do they have multiple custodians for the rest of their treasury?
I have no fucking clue.
Probably fucking not, honestly.
I wouldn't know.
We have to get away from this.
What do they do with if they have a whole abundance of gold in their pocket?
I don't know.
I don't have a fucking clue.
There's no gold treasury strategy. to look at.
But to go back, because they're publicly traded and we're dealing with these fiat games, this is the unfortunate reality. If it didn't have to deal with the SEC and you're playing within the walled gardens of the publicly traded forms that they offer, they can do whatever the fuck they want. If they want to keep it on a single signature without a passphrase on fucking Ledger, they could do that. Nobody could say anything, and they leave it on a hot wallet. Sucks to do that, but it's their prerogative. They could do that. But once we're dealing with these fiat fucking rules, that's the reality. And it's too bad that they have to deal with it. And then it indirectly impacts us too, because what happens with MicroStrategy, 190,000 Bitcoin, it's a fucking lot.
1%.
Right?
1%.
If they get rugged somehow, that's going to definitely impact the price of Bitcoin moving forward. A lot of trust will be lost and the price will plummet as a result. And so it's too bad that it's gotten to this point. But you know what? The reality is anybody could buy it. Anybody could buy it. Anybody can do whatever the fuck they want to do with it.
We'll know if Sailor shows up in the CoinKite support chat and D is like helping him out. It's Psych Mailer or something like that, and we'll know right away that it's Mike looking for some support.
If you want, Mike, if you want to get the best support, there's a video from Sabrina showing you on how to set up a cold card. She's 10 years old. She's not an engineer like you are. You should be able to do it. If she can do it, you could be able to do this. After getting a bad night's sleep, it shouldn't be a problem for you.
Oh man,
I think we exhausted this topic.
I can't believe I took a break from playing Diablo 2 Resurrected to get mad about Mike Saylor's Bitcoin.
Diablo 2
Resurrected, yeah.
It came. Wait.
I love Diablo 2.
I'm shocked. Was this a re-release?
They re-released it a couple of years ago, and I was playing something on Saturday morning before the show, and they had like a Valentine's Day sale, I guess, till the 16th or 17th. And Diablo 2 Resurrected was on sale for $15. So I messaged my brother. I'm like, you have this, right? How is it? He's like, it's great. Sign me up. I'm in. Got it. I love it. It's a great loot system. We'll talk about it later.
So we have some good news from Square that just came out this past week. And more specifically, it's tied to a company called ZapRight. And ZapRight and Square, well, they have formed a new partnership here because ZapRight, for people who are unaware what they are, and in fact, I was unaware who they were before all this, they have an integrated, they have an ability to sell stuff to merchants by using their platforms, kind of like the Coinbase Commerce. It's kind of the same thing, but they're more friendly to Bitcoin. So they have integrated Square into their platform, and this is going to give them the ability, Square customers, for instance, use Lightning and on-chain for payments moving forward, which I think it's opening up a whole new swath of people that could use Square products to buy stuff, and you could potentially now use Bitcoin on-chain and Lightning to facilitate the payments. And they say through this integration, Square merchants can receive payment in Bitcoin along with fiat, and this is going to also have integration into Apple Pay and Google Pay ecosystem. Although I don't know how, but they say there's going to be integration with each of those. At the moment, ZapRight is only available to U.S. customers. I'm not sure if they're going to be expanding outside of U.S., but if you are in Canada, UK, wherever, and want to take advantage of this, unfortunately, they might have ZapRight local to you, but it's not going to be that's in conjunction with Square. So this is after talking about Coinbase Commerce, this is a breath of fresh air. So it's good to talk about this. I have nothing else to say except good on Square. I think we had some really bad news from a whole bunch of other companies like Block and shit like that in the last few weeks. So it's good to have some good news coming from Bitcoin-related company, at least one that's tangentially related to Bitcoin.
Why don't we just wait and see on this and see what kind of like adoption, implementation, stuff like that? It feels like we've talked about similar stories, right?
Strike?
Maybe. Couple others, I'm sure, over the years, and nothing's really come of any of these things. You know, they've been these sort of false gods that never actually materialize or gain adoption or gain traction. Maybe I'm just missing on the timeline. I'm being too impatient, but the announcements are big. They're hyped up that, you know, a lot of Bitcoiners talking about it on Twitter, but then there's not much after that. Why don't you talk to me when it's like, you know, significant adoption or significant, you know, growth or proliferation of these kinds of things, and people are using the service in a way that makes sense. But for now, like, you know, telling me you can do it isn't the same as telling me that it's being used, I think. And I think we've become bad for that in Bitcoin. What do you think?
I can't speak on that. Ultimately, I just want to see the option available to people.
Yeah.
If they're using it, it's their choice, but at least the option is available, and if they choose to use it, all the more power to them. But not having that option obviously closed doors. So in this case, at least those doors remain open. How often they're going to be used remains to be seen.
Yeah. People don't want to spend Bitcoin either, right? Like that's another big
yeah, and it's a twofold problem, because in a quote unquote bull market, which, you know, it's one could make a very strong argument we're in right now, who the heck wants to spend? But then when the price kind of goes down, who the heck wants to spend then too? Because you're thinking, I could have spent it when it was X price, and it's now Y price, which is much less than X. So spending it now doesn't make sense. So yeah, there's always the threat that, no, not the threat. The idea is like, I'm not going to spend it just because of these reasons. But also to consider, at least in Canada, I don't know what other jurisdictions, spending in Canada is a taxable event.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that might be preventing people from spending their Bitcoin. And I can understand that, at least in Canada. In the top of your, like off the top of your head, do you know if United States, they have this type of setup? That I have no clue.
Didn't I think somebody, I want to say maybe it was Dennis Porter or someone else, they were talking about a de minimis rule, right? So if you spend under $50, something like that, there would be no tax on it for capital gains. I think the number may have actually been higher than that. Maybe it's like 500 or something of that nature. But it never
$600 number, but I could be
Is
wrong.
that what it was? That was Nancy Pelosi
reporting.
wanting to see everything that you were sending on Venmo, $600. Yeah.
I think you're right.
But yeah, they came up with like a de minimis tax law, but never actually pushed it or passed it. Who knows where it is now? I mean, I think a lot of these things could change, but again, you're really asking for trouble if you start letting people spend this stuff, because as a government, you're really taking away one of the last hurdles to adoption and know-how. And even if people start using Bitcoin just a little bit, the problem isn't necessarily the Bitcoin usage or adoption. It's like the ethos, right? You really can't have that ethos spreading that inflation is theft, stuff like that, right? You can't have people, tweeting out who will build the roads every time something goes wrong in like a municipality. So I think that's the more dangerous thing, and I don't expect that they're going to make it easy for people to get into Bitcoin. again, both on the spending side and on the ideas side. I think both are bad for status quo at the moment.
The UK seems to be making it more difficult for people to onboard or on-ramp into Bitcoin. And I'll explain why. Because over there, we've talked about banks that are preventing customers from sending their money to an exchange to buy Bitcoin. We also talked about Bitcoin ATMs being outlawed. Fuck, we even talked about Bitcoin ads being banned. This was several years ago. We talked about this. So somebody reported on Twitter, it was a Kraken user from the UK, and he posted an email that he received from Kraken saying that the exchange needs to up-to-date information regarding the self-custody wallets. So he's sending the Bitcoin to a self-custody wallet, and so Kraken is asking for some up-to-date information. It's pretty interesting. So they're confirming that the person that is receiving the Bitcoin manages the wallet, and if not, then details need to be provided to who controls that Bitcoin address and provide their residential address. So not only are they getting KYC Bitcoin from the get-go, they also want to confirm the address it's being sent to belongs to the person that they're sending it to. So if you look at this, the UK has been pretty tough with respect to Bitcoiners. And even the EU in general, things are going in the wrong direction, but we'll talk about that later. If I were a customer in the UK, I would strongly suggest
leaving the country, sailing away.
Well, maybe you have friends or family and jobs you can't leave. But if you're there, I would strongly suggest looking into decentralized exchanges or peer-to-peer services, as long as the laws allow it. I don't know what the UK laws are. Maybe it is against the law, and this is bad advice. But if they do allow it, certainly look into something like BISC, HODL, RoboSats, shit like that, because you don't want to give up this information if you don't have to. And you might have to pay a premium to buy from those services I mentioned. But in doing so, you are ensuring privacy moving forward. Remember, Bitcoin is an open and transparent ledger. Would you want anybody to know where and when you are spending your fiat dollars? Like if you go to the grocery store, they can look at the ledger and say, oh, fuck, you spent X amount at this grocery store. You wouldn't want that. Why would you want the same with Bitcoin? It's not for hiding for taxation purposes or whatever. It's remaining anonymous when spending it. Mm-hmm. That's my opinion. So that's what I would suggest for people in the UK. Definitely look at these decentralized exchanges or other peer-to-peer services. Find a way to use it as long as it's legal. Again, I don't know if it is legal in the UK. Do your own research, but that's all I got to say about this.
How high would an ATM fee have to be before you don't consider it just part of the cost of doing business when laws like this start to show up? We're lucky here that we have Bull Bitcoin where you can buy KYC free with basically zero additional fee. But, you know, other friend of the show, Adam O'Brien, CEO of Bitcoin Well, who was a sponsor of the show for a hot minute. That's how much we like Bitcoin Well. And we like Adam. We thought at the time before Bull came out with their service that the ATM fee, even if it's 20%, 15%, like it's still better than having a KYC stack. So
I just want to don't interrupt. It was usually between 10 and 15% for
10 and 15. Okay.
Between Bitcoin Well. Sorry, wanted to clarify.
No, that's true. That's true. And I mean, do you still feel that way? If you were living over there, you'd still pay so like maybe the answer isn't necessarily BISC or HODL. Those are good, but present different risks. Maybe the answer is the ATM. You know, if there's Bitcoin ATMs,
I think
get your are they really? You think are they outlawed over there? Come on.
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow.
I did some very preliminary research. They used to have that, but I think that they're no longer allowed. You might find some rogue ones around, but correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously, I don't live there, and this is all just from what I quickly gathered a bit. Yeah. So if that's the case, you're stuck using those services I mentioned. BISC, I think there comes with some sort of protection. There's like a pool of funds in case there is a complaint.
Yeah, that's true. But at the end of the day, like, I mean, I haven't signed on to BISC in a while. I used to have it on this machine when I was just fucking around with it. But I think you have to still either meet with somebody or send cash from a bank account. And
it depends what they're accepting. It could be e-transfer. It could be a number of different things. But it's really what the recipient wants.
It's still tied to you somehow, right? Like the bank can still say, like, you sent this person money. What did you send them the money for?
So here's one. RoboSats, you could send gift cards. You could send like an Amazon gift card. And by that would clearly break the trend. You could go to Shoppers Drug Mart or Walmart or whatever, buy it in cash.
That's a great obfuscation measure. Yeah.
So there are options available. Just again, I don't know if it's legal there. I don't know what the decentralized.
Yeah.
So, and to your saying, you were asking what percentage? I don't know what the percentage is in terms of like for me to pay extra for KYC free and Bull Bitcoin. I hope you don't implement this. I was doing 10 to 15% before Bull Bitcoin allowed the Canada Post thing.
Yep.
And I was doing with the knowledge that moving forward, the price of Bitcoin would be much higher than 10 to 15%, and I'm buying that day. I'm happy I did it.
Yeah, I think everyone's gonna be happy. We both know a guy who I won't dox, who's only ever bought Bitcoin dating back like 5 or 6 years at ATMs and spreads the buys around to different ATMs all over the place so as not to be like easily traceable. Cool.
Wow.
That was a good idea.
I have to give that.
He was ahead of his time.
He is definitely ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Especially if he's a large stack. Because, then you're going to have to use a mixing service or something, to break the trail. And then you don't know what's going to come with the legalities, all that moving forward. I mean, you expect that you want to get rugged, but you know what I mean? There's always that, at least for me, that hint of doubt in my mind. When I buy KYC free, fuck, I'm happy with that.
I gotta go tomorrow now. This always happens to me when I do the show. I'm always like, God, I gotta go buy.
Doesn't Bull mix before they send too?
They do. I still listen. I'll be honest with you, Len. I still use both. So, we'll see.
You know what? I'll say it here. 100%. I haven't bought KYC Bitcoin in close to a year. It's been KYC free since like almost a year, and I'm very happy I've been on this path, and I have no other way I'm going to buy it. Fuck that. I'm not going to give it up, that information.
Strong.
And
should we move to other notable stories?
We shall.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, on the audio side. If you're on video, just do nothing. Get another fizzy water or whatever and come on back. Join us here in the basement for other notable stories. Things have become very notable this week. There's a lot of notability in these stories, so you're really going to like it. Until then, take care of yourself.
Yeah, take care. Don't be a McCuck.
Oh, man. Rough. Okay. Well, where do you want to start?
The guy will not reply back to me. I tweeted him once. He replied back to me, and then the second time when I asked it, and it's several times I have asked for an answer to a question I proposed, nothing. Silence.
He replied to me today. He sent me to me today.
Does not reply. He replied to me once
about the QTR Larry Lepard show.
And you know the question I asked, because somebody else. I tagged him in something. He replied back.
Yeah.
I tagged him about the BlockFi. Then I specifically asked, did you pull all your funds from BlockFi at the same time you were advertising for them? No reply.
Yeah. I mean,
I want a clear yes or no. I believe it to be yes based on everything.
Well,
but
you're never going to get it, Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth. So don't worry.
I could certainly handle the truth. And I'm going to send you that thread. Fundamentals at 21, I think is his name on Twitter.
Yeah.
He did a phenomenal thread let's talk about some notable stories. The January CPI is out. And the numbers being reported show a increase month over month. And without getting into the specifics of what darts were hit on the board this month, taking into consideration the recent tone from Powell and the fact that inflation being reported has been going up, and it's been going up for some time, last 4 months, I think. I'm wondering, does this change your opinion on what's going to happen moving forward with the rates? Because the reason why I ask is there's a potential Powell is a lame duck chair.
Yeah.
Right? Like, meaning that once Donald Trump, I suspect he's going to be elected president, he's probably, I think there's a very high likelihood he's going to turf Powell, right? So if you're in Powell's seat and you're looking at this, this is a scenario that he might fucking be out of a job in less than a year. Why would he listen to any influence from the White House in terms of doing his job? Maybe he could parry some of that influence, maybe not all of it, but I don't know. Maybe the picture I'm painting may not ever come into fruition, but anything is possible. And, if you look at the inflation over the past 4 months that's being reported, it's gone up. So why would they not keep rates higher for longer?
Inflation is up in the States only compared to expectations. It's still sort of, if you look at 12 months of that chart, it's trending down. The problem is Supercore, which they claim to be looking at, is up a little bit. And gasoline, in terms of the price of like a barrel of oil is still pretty low. And I don't think either of those things are long for this world. So I expect inflation is going to go up. The two things that the US has going for them is that the inflation was really due mostly to the services sector, price pressure there, which whatever, you can kind of weather that or expect that it won't be as sticky as some of the other inflation. And the other thing is that retail spending surprised to the downside. That's from TD Economics too. So it's not just me saying that or looking at graphs or reading the tea leaves. If consumer spending is down, then maybe you start to see a drop in some of the other CPI numbers next month or next quarter, or whatever, who knows, right? Powell is like every other federal, central bank chairperson. He wants to cut. The bias in rates is down. It's always going to be down. And the higher for longer guys, I think, don't understand that the cut is the last piece of the equation. The market is already pricing in everything else. NVIDIA is worth more than like the entire nation or the entire continent of Europe or whatever. Like, who knows how much that thing's going to run higher. But I think a lot of people are calling for like this huge crash in both housing and the stock market as rates stay higher. My question for those guys would be like, a crash to what? The levels not seen since January, 20% ago, 15% ago. It's not a crash. I think for a crash at this point, for real pain, especially in the stock market, you need 60 or 70%. Because the numbers are, well, I mean, you tell me. Look at the chart look at the Mag 7, look at the S&P 500, look at the ETFs for the S&P, like VFV here in Canada. XEQT is another one that's widely used. Show me how a 30% drop in equities causes enough pain to force a recession or to force CPI down. It doesn't. And I think the concern that those guys have at this point is that their tools aren't going to do the trick and people are calling their bluff. And as long as credit stays available for the consumer, right? We talked about how credit card debt is up. People are just going to keep racking up the debt and not selling equities, not doing any other stuff that they would normally do, not scale back spending. And you're adding to the sort of loop because people are also doom spending. You can't save for a house anyway. So why the fuck not just go to another concert? Why the fuck not just take another trip? Why the fuck not just buy another TV, buy another camera, buy another phone, buy another whatever, right? They got a problem over there. And I think inflation is going to start running really hot. Do you think that Trump will turf Powell regardless of what he does with rates in the next 8 months? Powell claims not to care about politics or whatever, but I'm sure he does. And I agree with you. I think Trump's going to turf him no matter what, because I think Trump views him as part of the reason he didn't get reelected. And I think he views him as a guy who will be, quote unquote, part of the, deep state permanent Washington apparatus that he doesn't want anywhere near a second presidency, which, short of him being dead or in jail, he is almost bound to get at this point, unless there's like a surge in the sale of stamps with about a week to go before the election and mail-ins get senile Joe over the hump. But otherwise, I mean, you see a lot of changes at the Federal Reserve, I think, in terms of policy, in terms of direction, and in terms of, price of money, right? The interest rate. So let's wait and see.
So it sounds like we're both in agreement that he's going to probably be out of a job shortly after Trump gets elected.
I think so.
So if we could come to this agreement and we could see this, I'm sure Powell could also figure this out as well. And I don't think it would be a terrible blow to him. Like, he's not the youngest person in the world, right? He could enjoy his retirement, do speaking engagements and all that shit. But what I'm trying to get at is if he's like, it's like a lame duck coach. Like, you're not going to do something to fuck up the team. You're going to do the best thing you can to ensure that the person after you inherits something good, because you don't want to have the stigma attached to you that you are the worst federal chair in history. So keeping rates, quote unquote, high, where it is right now, roughly in the 5% range, or maybe even slightly higher, that could be a potential option. I mean, anything is possible.
Don't forget, Powell doesn't talk about the policy rate. He talks about the real rate. I think that's the term. I can't remember now. So it's basically the rate minus inflation. So inflation is the variable there, right? That's your X. So if they can get inflation down a bit, then maybe that rate becomes too high. He always makes sure to make that distinction now when he talks to the press. And I think that's something to pay attention to. If inflation gets up again, then it's a very static. It's a very dynamic situation, I should say. Nothing is static there at all. It's been fun to watch, and I appreciate I don't do a lot of public speaking, obviously, but like I think I'm pretty good at it, and I can like tell when someone is kind of nervous compared to when they're not. And I gotta say, 2-3 months ago, Powell looked to be less and less nervous. The most recent FOMC 2 weeks ago, he didn't look very happy to be there. He didn't look like he was jovial. Didn't look like he had an edible before the press conference like he did the month before, the report before. But we'll see. We'll see how he looks in the next time he has to talk to the gaggle there.
So based on all this, anything is possible. And I just wonder if he's going to just potentially keep it as it is, regardless of what happens with inflation rate, just because he wants to ensure that he's not known as the worst fucking chair ever in history. So that's why I'm just looking at this.
Why is he not? Why do you think he's not? Like he could already be headed that direction.
Correct.
He missed on the raise timing, right? He raised way too late, way too quick. And then
Joey, if you asked me to name 5 chairs, I wouldn't be able to.
Volcker,
the reality
Powell,
is I don't have enough
Bernanke, Yellen, Mnuchin. There you go.
Got it. Volcker?
Oh, Mnuchin wasn't one. He was Treasury Secretary, maybe.
So like, it's hard for me to like really. I don't have enough data. This is a world I don't really care too much about, to be perfectly frank. So, and just by looking at that, he's not a young guy. He's at the end of it. He's been in this job for almost a decade. Like,
close to it.
Was it 2015, 2016?
He's an Obama. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So
pretty sure.
So whatever. And I guess one thing I just wanted to bring up is Boomer was asking, are they free filling the SPR reserves? And I took a look right now. I'm on their website, and the answer is no. The SPR reserves are going down since. Oh my god!
Buddy, I'm telling you, those low oil prices are not long for this world either. They got an expiry date, and it is gonna match that chart like you would not believe. I cannot believe these guys are doing this for political reasons. It's just completely insane to me that this is going on.
November's the last month that's been reported here. So
yeah.
November 2023. So as 2 months, 3 months, there's nothing reported. They haven't added anything to it since August. So September, October, November of 2023 has been flat. No increase, no decrease. So they haven't been adding to it, but they haven't been subtracting from it. So
right.
That's just something to answer.
Fun and exciting. Fun and exciting. What's next?
There's a story from CNN, and they're talking about, the title of this story is German Bank Braces for Wave of Bad Loans in Greatest Real Estate Crisis Since the Financial Crisis. It's the German bank PBB. Don't ask me what the acronym stands for, because it is a very long German word and German name, and I'm terrible at this. But anyways, they're a specialist bank. They are focusing on real estate financing and public investment finance. They're not a traditional universal bank like Deutsche Bank. They're a specialist bank, so keep that in mind. But anyways, PBB came out this past week saying that they only have enough cash and highly liquid assets to operate for 6 months. So they desperately need new investors. When this happened, their stock tumbled 17%. I can't believe it didn't topple 99%, but what the fuck do I know? The bank has a large exposure to real estate. So what I'm trying to get at here with this story is banks in general that have large exposure to real estate, i.e. all of them, they're fucked. Even Janet Yellen this past week was noting that banks that have this type of exposure to real estate, especially commercial, they're in dire situations. Germany's biggest lender, Deutsche Bank, said last week that it allocated 123 million euro during the fourth quarter of last year to absorb the potential default on its U.S. commercial loans, real estate loans. 123 million euro. Like, that's basically 2 or 3 commercial deals, right? That's fuck all. And they allocated this in Q4. New York Community Bank Corp, that was another one that was heavily tied to real estate, commercial, and also commercial real estate in New York. That we have talked about this last week and last few weeks about this. A bank in Japan called Aozora, they said that bad loans tied to U.S. offices led to a projected annual loss of $190 million last year. Buckle up. There's a lot of fucking banks that have exposure to U.S. real estate, commercial real estate, that they are going to feel the pain. And when they feel the pain, there's going to be bailouts as a result. We feel the pain, and the cycle continues. And on top of all this, you see all these problems going on with these banks and commercial real estate, the Fed said they're going to be testing 32 different banks against a severe global recession that impacts commercial, real estate, residential real estate, and corporate debt markets. So they see something is going on, and they're going to try to test how well these banks, the 32 banks that they're going to randomly select, as a way to see if they could weather the storm. So they obviously see something that's coming up. Of the 32 banks they're going to be testing, Joey, surprisingly, New York Community Bancorp is not on the list. I wonder why, because they fucking failed that miserably. So there you go. Banking, real estate, commercial real estate, all looking bad.
Looks pretty bleak, eh? If you're one of these guys who has to market your real estate portfolio in the next year, you're really going to be cruising for a bruising, right? You're really not going to be happy about the markdown you take if you try and renew the loan too. The Looney Hour, Keith Dicker specifically, talks a lot about loan loss provisions, which is money that banks keep in reserve to help combat some of the risk in bad loans. And in the last year or 2 years, you've seen a significant spike in the number of dollars these guys are keeping just to protect themselves from stuff that they must have thought was a good deal risk-wise at some point in the last 5 years or 10 years, and now suddenly is not. The question is, are they going to have enough? I think Janet Yellen was on TV a week ago. So a week ago? Maybe a week ago.
It was this past week she was talking about this.
Right? And she's doing an interview, and I'm going to become the body language doctor again here to quote the famous Bill Simmons. Didn't like the way she was shaking her head a little bit too much and twitching a little too much and kind of losing her breath a bit too often. I realize she's, a little longer in the tooth than you or I. And so some of that stuff is forgivable, but Len, I got to tell you, I don't have a lot of faith in anything that these guys say. And I worry that there's a lot of risk under the table that's not being accounted for or not being discussed or being intentionally kept secret. Joey, that's so tinfoil hat. Everything's going to be fine. I don't know, Anon. What about 2008? What about 2001? What about 1987? What about, XYZ other crash and set of lies and manipulated data? You got to express the risk somewhere. And so those loan portfolios is one way, dollars another way, bank stock prices are a third way. There's lots of ways to express risk. You can't hide them all. You're going to be playing whack-a-mole with public markets. It's almost always a losing game, right? So let's wait and see. Do you think that we go a year without a significant crisis in the U.S. banking sector? We taled last week, I think, about
we haven't gone a year. Like it's past 12 months.
That's what I mean. Like we're not going to be able to go a year. And so we even talked last week about how the regionals have like double the credit card delinquency. They probably have double the mortgage delinquency, double the auto delinquency. Like they have it's all in those regionals, man. And those regionals,
the BTFP.
That's a result of like a month or 2 months, right? It's pretty close.
But they put that in place to try to prevent further collapse. If that didn't come into place, the banking crisis that we experienced in 2023 would have been far, far worse.
How much money do we have in the reserves for CBP? Like, can we snap up an American regional bank if the prices get low enough?
It's potential. We got a decent amount of Bitcoin that we purchased. Now we'd have to pay capital gains on that. We'd have to run the numbers to see if it's possible. But yeah,
call the accountant. I think we should look into this. It'd be sick if we could just start broadcasting from a bank vault. We don't even need to use the bank. Just give me the building. Let's broadcast the show from a vault.
You know that Patrick Bet-David does that, right?
Does he really?
Yeah. So that's probably 6 months ago. They I don't know if they bought the building or they signed some agreement, but yeah, they now do it from a bank vault. That's what they're
sick. That's a great idea. That's on YouTube, right? It must be on YouTube if you've seen it.
Yeah, they do it all on YouTube. And that show that when they first announced it, I'm guessing it was 6 months ago. It was they talked about it at length. It was, it was a landmark moment for that show. But anyways, something that's not a landmark moment, at least for Americans, is the border bill, which they basically scribbled out the border bill stuff. So I don't know how it came to this, where initially, it was a border bill and that's what was being talked about. I think it was being talked about within politicians and political circles, but also the media too. And it was, a percentage of it was actually the total bill was going to be for the border. Now they got rid of it. So the U.S. Senate, they passed a $95 billion aid package. This was 120. Well, they scribbled out the border bill stuff, so it was actually it was three-figure billion. So this aid package is going to go to Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and this kind of happened too, by the way, around Super Bowl time, right?
Big surprise.
It just seems funny that this took place. They got rid of the border shit. It happened around the Super Bowl. It's kind of like, you know, trying to do this like on a Friday before a long weekend. And then, you know, it's like, what the fuck is going on here? Like,
Oh man,
it seems like nothing is being addressed that should be addressed. And the money that's being spent on foreign wars to keep them going, it's like a never-ending pit of money. And you got people in the United States that can't find jobs, or they're addicted to drugs, healthcare, they can't afford it, and so much is going wrong. People are being evicted or foreclosed. You know, I would imagine these are the type of things you should be investing in. What the fuck do I know? Or maybe even infrastructure. You go to airports in the United States compared to airports around the world. Like you go to China, for instance, and you look at pictures. It's like, holy fuck, the airports in China are brand new and they're modernized. You go to the United States, it's like a fucking war zone. Or if you go to the New York subway, you're lucky if you get out of there. It looks pathetic.
I know.
With all the maintenance that hasn't been done over the years. And then you see all this money going abroad. It's like, really? Like, do we really have to do this? And it's just a shake my head moment.
Immigration and the border, and Narwhal talking about the Americans coming, or the migrants coming into Canada too. Narwhal, I know you're an American. I hear you on the FTC sometimes. This is so nuclear, I'm not going to touch it. But I will say a couple of things just about the kind of broader situation with omnibus bills, right? And that's basically what this is. Omnibus bills are bills that, you know, capture some specific cause and specific cost and then tie in a bunch of other pork. Tons of this stuff happens here, happens in the States, happens all over the place, I'm sure. The reason they do this is because they want to be able to say, well, this person didn't support the border bill when we brought it forward. They don't mention, of course, that there's, you know, 100 million, 200 million, or in this case, several tens of billions probably for cause XYZ that maybe one party or one person or one faction doesn't support. And so they don't want to pass the bill. And then they, you know, accuse them of being anti this, anti that, whatever the ism is of the day. That's what they are. And it's just this, you know, clusterfuck of media coverage with no productivity or, you know, plot advancement in terms of what these guys are doing to fix the border problem. The bigger issue, I think, for the States, you know, whatever, these foreign aid packages, this is nothing new. These guys spend tons of money on foreign wars. They will kill people all over the planet with the American dollar. They've been doing it for a long time. But isn't the bigger issue that Texas is basically on the path to succession here?
Are they going to go ahead with it? Do you think
it seems more and more likely every day? You got Abbott now building an armed forces base for 2,000 troops on the Texas Mexico border. And I mean, it's not about whether he plans to use the troops against the federal government. I don't think he does. The fact is, though, that this guy is a state governor building borders, building a guard to secure a federal border, a nation border. I would say that, you know, without being an expert in succession or secession, it's probably secession. Yeah, got to soften that C up. Without being an expert in secession, I would say that probably there's similar stuff that's happened in a lot of other cases where states have seceded from the union. Or
wait. When was the last time?
I more mean like broadly, like the last time, like whatever. You could look back. I'm talking like 100 years, 200 years, 1,000 years, whatever. I'm just using state and union there in the sort of you know, royal state, royal union type thing. I would guess that this is a signpost, is it not? We're building a military installment on a border. It's got to be. I just don't think that this lends itself to, you know, improving relations with the federal government anytime soon. That would be my big concern if I was somebody in American political life. But it doesn't seem like anyone's talking about it. It's been basically out of the news entirely. You only see this stuff, you know, text it on Bitcoin Twitter and conservative Twitter. I would say maybe a little more often than liberal Twitter. But by and large, it's been basically nothing, right? Radio silence on that. That's where I would be concerned if I was them.
I don't put too much stock into something like that taking place. At least not right now. Maybe in several years or decades potentially. But
well, it depends, right? It depends on what you mean by secede. It doesn't necessarily mean that you form your own nation state and start your own currency. But does it mean that you stop taking orders from the federal government? Like, no, I'm not going to shut down the Bitcoin miners. No, I'm not going to force them to report the data that they're collecting. No, I'm not going to force people to do self-hosted wallet nonsense.
This is
I'm
part
not
of
going to regulate AI like that. I could see
this is part of the deal. Once you join the collective, then you got to listen to the master tell you.
That's true here, but it is not true over there. It is not true over there. They
United States.
Yeah, I think that's in name only.
States are united over there.
State sovereignty means a lot more over there. They're
it
not
sure does, but
yeah,
there are certain things the federal government deals with.
I don't know.
So when you were talking about them seceding, the one thing that comes to mind is the mandibles, and they talk about Nevada being and it was landlocked. So at least Texas, in this case, it's not landlocked, so they have the ability to transport shit in and out by sea. Plus, they have a border with Mexico as well. So that's the one thing I always wonder when I hear anything to do with secession in Texas. I always revert back to the mandibles.
Mandibles moment.
Yes, it's a reality of that. So the United States of, is that what they call the United States of Nevada? I forget. That's what
I don't know.
Something like that. Anyways, New Zealand central bankers, and man, we saw this, and I can't believe that. And I'm going to be very brief on this. I can't believe that they have the gall to say it. They were saying that central banking is a good business to be in.
Unreal.
They print money, and people believe it, and they do it with a fucking laugh, right? Like, really? Like, I see this, and I've Krusty the Clown I've seen have better judgment with trying to keep the quiet part quiet and saying the loud part loud. These guys are doing the opposite. That's all I'm going to say is, like, come on. Truly no coiners category here. Not my no coiner of the week. Actually, I do have somebody, by the way, but these guys are very, very close to what they did over here, and terrible stuff.
Isn't it bizarre when the emperor tells you he's naked?
But if he's walking around naked and he tells you,
you know what I mean? Like, the jig's up. It's very, very weird. I must have watched that clip 5 times and tried to find like the longer version of it. I haven't been able to find it, but I kind of want to see, like, was that just taken out of, it's hard for me to imagine that it was, but was it taken out of context? Was it selectively edited? I don't know. I want to see the longer video.
I don't know.
Who knows? I want to see the longer video if there's one out there for sure. Because that was like completely insane, man. That is baddie. And New Zealand, by the way, another place with a lot of friction domestically, thanks to some of the COVID stuff and other, they're in the same kind of real estate mess that we're in over here. So not a great time to be testing the limits of the sanity of the voting population. That's for sure.
Well, they switched prime ministers. It's a new person from the same party from previous.
Yeah.
And so this guy, I don't know if he was hand selected by the former prime minister. I don't know, but at the very least, things seem to have settled down over there somewhat. I don't know if it's a result of this or just time. People, just more. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. But my no coiner is, I'm going to talk about The Economist, and we talked about The Economist many times before, but this time I'm going to have to bring them up because they penned an article that said your pay is going up too fast. That's the fucking title. Your pay is going up too fast. And they are blaming the pay everybody receives because it's gone up. That is the reason why central banks are having a difficulty finally trying to rein in this inflation problem. It's now at the very end of this. We dealt with supply chain issues. We dealt with this and that, the flooding of money. It's fucking the money that we're getting paid. That's the last piece of the puzzle. And we're getting paid too much. And they say in the article, and I'm quoting this, although American pay growth is between 4.5% and 5.5%, it is probably too high for the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation target. So they're saying 4.5% to 5.5% increase in pay by Americans is too high, and that's causing the Federal Reserve difficulty to achieve their 2% target. But they also, in the same article, say, and this is by their own admission, rich world prices was rising 5.4% year over year. So, inflation is 5.4% year over year, but people's pay is 4.5% to 5.5%. Either barely covers the inflation or does just negligibly cover it. So I can't see they could say this on both sides of the fence. Prices are going up not because of fucking pay. It's because they flooded the market with M2. And now people are getting paid. It's a lag, by the way, to get paid more to catch up to and they probably will never catch up in totality. They don't talk about the fact that they just flooded the markets with QE, with all this fucking money, and you have more money chasing the same goods. more money entering the stock market, more money entering into real estate,
Yeah,
more money entering into Bitcoin. They mention nothing about this. And the sad thing is, The Economist, they don't even say who the fuck wrote it. I can't find the author's name. He, she, they, them. I don't have a fucking clue who it is. It's just them. The Economist. Again, they are my no coiners of the week.
There's no byline. The funniest thing for me is that the beginning of the article, I have it here. I had to pull it up. I didn't realize it was behind a paywall either, by the way.
Yeah,
I must have had an archive link before. Central bankers are entering the final stretch. Rich world prices are rising. So by 5%, by 5.4% year on year, down from a peak of 10.7%. Just the first sentence, okay? Central bankers are entering the final stretch. No, they're not. Oil is still super cheap, like we talked about. There's still problems with the data reporting. They're changing the CPI basket all the time. They're changing to look at things like quote unquote super core or whatever the hell that is. Then the next sentence, Len. Rich world prices are rising by... Who's rich in rich world that's being paid too much? The UPS drivers who just got laid off, are they being paid too much? The guys who have to drive Uber and have 2 jobs in rich world to make it work? The new Canadians who come here on PR, student visas, whatever, and have to live 20 to a basement apartment to make ends meet? Are they part of rich world making too much? Who's making too much? Anyone you know making too much? Anyone you know complaining about just there's too much money hitting my checking account every month? I got to slow it down to help ease the inflationary pressures. Anyone you know saying that?
Not a single person. But yet the economists are fucking reporting that's the case.
Unbelievable. The language they use is important, man. Like it's like labor markets are not cooperating. What do you want us to do? Work for free? Work for less? Eat the bugs? Whatever. Like it's one of those things, basically, is what you're saying. Just say it. Stop trying to finesse me with the, canvas bag New Yorker crossword puzzle bullshit and just say what you fucking mean. You can't maintain the lifestyle you think you should be able to maintain because inflation is too high. We fucked up and you got to pay the price for it. I don't think so, man. You go first. That's what I say. You're making too much.
And the sad thing is they don't put a name associated with the article. So they could put up whatever piece they want. And there's no way to tie it to an individual or a group of people that penned this. So it's sad that nobody's doing that. And when you see that, it's fucking a shitty article. If I wrote something that was good, I'd want to have my name associated. I would want to get the recognition that I deserve as a result of putting out a great article. But if I put out a shit article, I would not want my name out there because because I want to have my name penned with a good article. For the flip side, I don't want to have it tied at all to the shitty article I fucking wrote. That's just another thing. Boomer was saying about the truckers. Did you see about that? What's going on in New York City?
They're refusing to. What are they refusing to take loads or deliver loads?
Yeah, because it's the ruling against Donald Trump, right? There was a recent ruling that Trump had to pay. What was the number? $350 million.
Some insane number. Yeah. And by the way, you see that the governor there got on the news and said, "Don't worry about the Trump ruling. Your business is safe in New York." Like, fuck, it is. Until you do something the fucking governor doesn't like, or win against a liberal establishment candidate, then you're anything but safe. It's unbelievable. Sometimes I find myself like saying stuff on this show that I can't believe I'm saying out loud, but it's truly where we are. Things have become so notable out there that we have to say these things.
Yeah. I just want to say, Torp is always asking every week when Mutant League Hockey chat.
Do you know what Mutant League Hockey is?
I've seen
it's on the Switch. I think it's on the Switch. It looks good. I almost bought it before. What was I doing? I was like going somewhere. It was gonna be a long ride or something like that. And I think it's only like $10. I kind of want to buy it. Honestly, it's probably not bad.
I thought it was a game for Genesis back in the day.
Mutant Hockey League.
I thought it was. Yeah, I thought it was. I thought it was
Oh no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Made by EA, and so they kind of used, I'm guessing, the same engine that they had for Madden and NHL, and so they just created for see Sega. You're saying? Yeah,
game looks legit.
So I don't know. I have never played it. I'm busy as it is, man. I still have games to play in my NHL 94 league. I still have to wrap up. It's getting late. Yeah, but yeah, that trucker thing, it's incredible because they say they're refusing to deliver anything in the city of New York. So
yeah, well,
sorry, New York City. So that it goes to show you that people are fucking pissed with the administration and also the ruling by some of these judges, which might have a vendetta against Donald Trump. Because did you see the ruling? I saw like a video of his when he finalized ruling, and it's like he did it with like a smirk and everything. I don't know if it was an edit or something. It just
that's an old. That's not from the ruling. It's from the first day of the trial. Yeah.
Okay.
And someone made the edit where like it's him being introduced in like a 1990s like sitcom opening credits. Holy shit! That's perfectly.
I haven't watched TV in forever, Joey. Do they still have those? Like,
not since the 90s or what?
It's probably been like 15. I haven't watched a recent show. I don't know how long.
I don't watch any TV. This is off the beaten path.
Like, do they still the song at the beginning, at the end of the shows? Do they still do that?
They do, but it's not really the same. Like it's more for dramatic effect now. Like I just finished watching True Detective today. 4 out of 10, by the way. Worst season yet.
I never heard of that. I thought it was a book.
True Detective season 1, Len. If you and Daniela are ever like bored on a weekend, on a Sunday, and you feel like watching something that will 100% captivate you with all A-list actors, all the top of their game, True Detective season 1 is the best 7 hours of TV ever made. It's not, and nothing even comes close.
Huh? Give me a number of how many of the actors are A-list.
It stars McConaughey and Woody Harrelson.
Woody Harrelson's the only one I know because from Cheers. And
yeah, McConaughey's in there too. He's really good in that movie. Alexander Daddario's in there.
McConaughey in a lineup with some other random dude, I have a 50-50 chance of picking him.
Well,
I'm not kidding.
I'm telling you, if you ever want to get into something that'll captivate you, that'll do it. That's good TV. Anyway, do you want to talk about one more thing, 2 more things?
Yeah, well, something else that should be able to captivate you is what's going on with the Bank of Canada, because they say that they're going to be halting. This is according to RBC, by the way. And this is not from the Bank of Canada, but RBC believes that the Bank of Canada is going to be halting their QT program within months. And they say that it's going to be ending in April of this year. The Bank of Canada to date have reduced the assets on their balance sheet to around $313 million Canadian. And at the peak, it was around $570 million. So they've been unwinding this for quite some time and reduced their balance sheet significantly, around $250 million Canadian. But you get this word from RBC, which is a prominent bank within Canada. They must have a lot of data that they're pulling to come to this solution. The Bank of Canada Deputy Governor, Tony Gravel, said last March, I know it's a long time ago, but still, he said last March, that policymakers expect to wind up quantitative tightening as late as 2024 or early 2025. So it's either going to be the end of this year or beginning of next year. So you got 2 different things that are being said. One was a little bit dated from last year, but they're saying it's not going to be ending until later this year. RBC says it's going to be happening in a couple of months. And if QT ends, potentially QE is an option if it's ever needed. So just keep that in mind. The Canadian dollar has had some challenges as a comparison to other currencies throughout the world, like compared to the Mexican peso, for instance. It's lost significant amount, 10-15% in the past year and a half, if I recall correctly. So yeah, it's going to be interesting times moving forward.
Our rate or our CPI comes out this week, right? I think.
Yes, tomorrow, I believe.
Tomorrow, Wednesday.
I think it's tomorrow.
In terms of QTQE, I agree with everything you said. Let's talk Canadian rates. Since we talked about the US, let's talk Canadian rates.
Sure.
Last month, home sales increased for the second straight month. I have written down here. TD expects firmer price growth is likely moving forward. Home builders building at an impressive pace, but still not. Okay, I'll quote here. Still trail fundamental housing requirements flowing from Canada's sizzling population growth. Next week's inflation report likely to show a little change in overall inflation. So I don't know. I'd have to look back and see how many times we stopped tightening operations and started and left rates high compared to the 80s. They're not high, but higher than we're used to. Or do they instead often stop those quantitative tightening operations and then switch to QE and make money easy? I don't know. I've said this before that I think housing, I had this back and forth with Scott Deedles on Twitter, about how there's not a housing crash coming. I don't know what the case is for a housing crash. And I look at housing the same way I look at the stock market. If you tell me the houses are going to crash to prices not seen since, last year, That's not a crash, man. It may be a crash in like name only, that 20%. But if they're going up 20% every year, it's not really a crash, is it? You're talking like 60%, 70% for it to really be a crash. That would bring prices back to what? 2019, maybe 2018.
It's
really
worse than that because if you adjust for inflation,
Yeah,
it's even
exactly.
like,
Exactly. Right. So what are you really hoping for, people who are like on this crash bandwagon? I don't know, but I don't think the bank sees it the same way you do. I think they see it the way that I see it. And they're going to try and temper expectations with their words, and the policy is going to become easy again at some point in this year. I think it's going to start to go the other direction. And I know Boomer in the chat was saying they're not going to cut in the States unless something really goes wrong. Canada's not in the same boat. Like there's too much exposure to real estate. There's too much the CPI basket is shelter. And you do the math, man. I don't know.
Foss used to say that the Bank of Canada is a testing ground for.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much validity to that. I just wanted to bring that up. So maybe that's truthful. I don't know. But there's also another thing to consider is Tiff Macklem, his words that he's using and his tone, it's different now.
Body language, doctor. He's in the house, everyone. Doctor is in.
This isn't body language. This is actually was straight coming out of his mouth. And he's been critical of the government.
Yeah.
Right. This is what I'm
very much so. The last two meetings, probably. Yeah. Pretty
yeah.
Pointed.
So
yeah.
Essentially, what I gather from it, and maybe I didn't get it correctly, but the way he's saying is the government spending should be reduced to enable the Bank of Canada to continue what they're trying to do to bring down inflation. He said, from what I gather, he's saying that the government spending is really causing an issue with the bank to try to achieve their 2% target. And so Macklem, I don't know what's happened, but lately he's been, just
they're at odds, right? They're at odds with the current government. I think it's safe to say that. If I look at the language, it's probably the first time ever, right, that it's been so direct.
Which is funny because the relationship between the two entities, right? They are separate on paper, but really, is that the case? No. So, and if you have, somebody within the family that is saying stuff that's negative towards the family, that I don't know. It just seems odd.
I know what happens when that happens in The Sopranos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I don't think Macklem is going to get whacked. He'll be. What do
you think? Maybe we'll close on this. Cut this year or no?
In Canada or the US or both?
Give me both.
Cut this year, yes.
Okay.
I think now significant cuts. No, but we could see 25 basis points from each of the two banks the latter half of this year and still meet my prediction. Now, I think the better question is, will be significant? Will we see, up to 100 basis points or more cuts this year in either of the two? And I'm just totally guessing here. It's like guessing the CPI. But I would say, yeah, maybe we'll see between now and December a 100 basis point cut. I think so. It's definitely possible. What about you?
Yeah, I would say Canada is more likely than the US, but I also think that, if you look at some of the reporting last week on the US CPI print, the White House is in panic mode now because there's just not going to be an easy path to cuts like there was, a month ago or 2 months ago when CPI was kind of coming down. That was the story, right? That was the narrative. Yeah, jovial Powell, like I talked about before. But some reporting saying that the White House is in a bit of a frenzy last week because they really are relying on rate cuts. And I think a lot of people are going to try and call that bluff. So let's see. I think we're going to get cuts on both sides. To your point, 25 basis points is what everyone expects because we just saw 25s on the way up for part of that.
Are you talking about every meeting or by the end of the year?
I think by the end of the year, you're going to see 75 bips on both sides. I think Canada's, you could convince me with the right set of odds to bet that Canada gets 150 basis points off of the rate this year with the right set of odds. I don't know what those odds would have to be, but maybe 3-1, something like that.
And the thing is, a lot hedges on their decisions to figure.
Everything does. Literally everything.
Yeah.
The stock market, the housing market, education,
your ability to
everything.
To buy shit.
It's incredible. It's everywhere. Yeah.
That a small group of people have that much power. And I'm not saying that they're doing this in a way nefariously, but still they do have that power. Like that's why I like Bitcoin, it takes it away, and the free market goes on its own rather than having people try to address certain things by increasing rates or decreasing rates and stuff like that. But yeah, it goes to show you how much fucking power some people have, and it could just impact our lives drastically, positively or negatively.
Unfairly is the answer. Positive or negative, unfairly is the answer. I think
this is the system we built.
Yeah.
And we live. The sad reality is, most of us have no other idea like what it feels like to live in a different type of standard, like in a standard where it's money's backed by something that's hard, like,
or just the policy is like, I don't even care about the backing. You could tell me that the money's not backed by anything, and I would say okay, but how about at least like some predictability in the policy? Instead, it's like done by the strength of the wind blowing that day. It's done by, again, like you said, it's like, it's very opaque. It's a couple of people deciding whether or not you're going to be able to retire at 60 or 65.
Well,
55 or
I don't have much
or whatever
data to support this, but I think that you would have more predictability under a gold standard.
For sure.
So there is merit to say that having that type of system, you'll have an idea what's going to happen in the next little while. And I'm born in the late 70s, and I'm one of the older people here, I would imagine. And in my lifetime, I've never, obviously, 1971 was the last time there was a gold standard for countries that they could redeem their gold. But as for an individual, it's like, what is it? 100? No, not quite. When's 1931? It's almost 100 years.
100 years now. Yeah, pretty close.
That's a fucking long time, man. Like, I don't know. I'll leave it at that, Joe. I think that's a good episode. Thanks for everybody that tuned into the chat. It's been a rocking chat, like always.
Like always, man. You guys are the best. Len is back Wednesday with Gabe. He's also doing Tom and Nick's Your Life Return Show Wednesday. I am doing Hervoy and Morich's TNT radio show. All those links will be tweeted out when we have them. Until we see you next time, take care of yourself.
Yeah, don't be a McCuck.
Oh, wait, I forgot I have to go to Rumble to end that stream. Anything else you want to add before?
Oh, man, it's this is the shit we have to deal with now, ladies and gentlemen. So all this shit behind the scenes. I can't wait till we have the people that could man the switchboard.
That's right.
The switchboard.
Okay, now we're leaving. Goodbye.
Yeah.